Of course, here's a compelling and engaging introduction for your YouTube video. The room is buzzing with energy. A young mother, Sarah, shifts nervously in her seat, glancing at her phone. She's been refreshing her emails all day, waiting for an update from her boss. Just last week, her toddler came down with a fever, and she had to take an extra day off. It wasn't an easy choice. She had already used up her childcare leave for the year. Now, she's wondering if her job is on the line. Across the city, David, a father of two, is rushing to pick up his kids from daycare. He barely made it out of work in time, and he's exhausted. He and his wife have been juggling responsibilities, trying to balance their careers while making sure their children are well cared for. Like many parents, they wonder, what if they had more support? What if the government offered more childcare leave days to help working parents like them? This is a question on the minds of thousands of families, and today, we're bringing it straight to the top. In this special episode of Asterisk, Ask the Finance Minister Asterisk, we'll explore a topic that affects so many lives, but doesn't always get enough attention. Will the government consider increasing childcare leave for young parents? Is there a plan in place to ease the pressure on working families? We've gathered voices from all sides, parents, employers, and policymakers, to understand the real challenges and what can be done. But the biggest question remains, what will the finance minister say? Is change on the horizon, or will parents have to continue making impossible choices between work and family? Stay with us as we dive into the debate, uncover the realities, and put the tough questions forward. Because for parents like Sarah and David, this isn't just policy, it's their daily life. And today, they're hoping for answers. Sarah takes a deep breath and locks her phone. No email yet. She knows she did what any parent would do. Her child needed her, and work had to wait. But that doesn't stop the uneasy feeling in her stomach. In the past year, she's heard of colleagues being passed over for promotions or quietly let go after taking too many family-related absences. She loves her job, but she loves her child more. Should it have to be a choice? David, meanwhile, maneuvers through traffic, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. His wife had an important client meeting today, so the afternoon daycare pickup fell on him. He doesn't mind. These moments with his kids are precious. But the stress of always being on edge, always making calculations in his head. How many leave days do we have left? What if one of the kids gets sick next month? Can we afford unpaid leave? It's starting to wear him down. They are not alone. Across the country, thousands of parents are asking the same questions. They're managing sleepless nights, last-minute doctor's visits, and childcare gaps that no one seems to have answers for. The current childcare leave system offers some support, but for many, it's just not enough. When a child gets sick unexpectedly or school closes for the day, parents are left scrambling. Some have understanding bosses, others don't. The bigger issue, however, is not just about a few extra days off. It's about whether the system truly recognizes the challenges young parents face. Some countries have already expanded their parental leave policies, acknowledging that a strong support system for working parents leads to healthier families, happier employees, and even a better economy. But will this government follow that path? As Sarah scrolls through social media, she sees parents sharing their struggles in comment sections. Some have had to quit their jobs entirely because balancing work and family became impossible. Others talk about the guilt of choosing career over time with their little ones. Then there are those who quietly push through, hoping things will change but fearing they won't. At the heart of this debate lies a crucial question. Do policymakers truly understand what it's like to be in their shoes? Do they see the nights parents spend awake, worrying about their children and their paychecks at the same time? That's why today's episode matters. The finance minister has the power to make a real difference, but will they listen? The stage is set, the voices are ready to be heard, and the answers, well, that's what we're here to find out. David finally pulls into the daycare parking lot, just as the last few parents trickle in. He rushes inside, scanning the small crowd for his kids. His youngest, Emma, spots him first and runs toward him with a big smile. For a moment, the stress of the day fades. This is why he does it. But as he signs the pickup sheet, he overhears two other parents talking. I had to take another unpaid day off today, one mother sighs, stuffing her daughter's backpack with leftover snacks. My boss didn't say anything, but I could tell she wasn't happy. I can't keep doing this. The other parent nods in agreement. Same here. I checked with HR, and they said there's nothing they can do. Childcare leave is what it is. If we use it up, we're on our own. David exchanges a quick glance with them before heading to the car. These conversations are happening everywhere, but are they reaching the people who can make a difference? Back in her apartment, Sarah sits at the kitchen table, laptop open, reading an article about how other countries have expanded childcare leave. Some have introduced flexible policies, allowing parents to split leave between both caregivers. Others have increased the number of paid days, recognizing that childcare isn't just about emergencies, it's a daily balancing act. She sighs, rubbing her temples. She and her husband have been talking about having a second child, but how could they make it work? With the current system, taking time off means sacrificing either career growth or financial stability. She wonders if policymakers truly understand what families like hers go through, or if they see childcare leave as just another line in a budget report. Meanwhile, at a corporate office across town, Rachel, a mid-level manager, sits in a meeting where HR is discussing employee retention. We're seeing more young parents leaving, one of the executives says. They're saying it's about work-life balance. Rachel knows exactly what they mean. She's watched talented employees struggle with rigid leave policies, forced to make impossible choices. She wants to say something, to push for change. But she also knows how these conversations usually go. The company prides itself on being family-friendly, but when it comes down to real policy changes, nothing ever moves forward. The finance minister's office has likely heard these concerns before, but have they truly listened? Parents, employers, and even policymakers themselves are all part of this conversation, but who will take action? As the clock ticks down to the big discussion, one question remains: will today be the day something finally shifts? Or will parents like Sarah and David continue waiting for answers that never come? The morning of the finance minister's address arrives, and tension is thick in the air. Sarah sits at her desk, her phone resting beside her laptop, notifications buzzing as parents across online forums share their last-minute thoughts. Some are hopeful, believing this could be the moment real change happens. Others are skeptical, convinced the discussion will end with vague promises and no real action. Sarah isn't sure what to believe anymore. David, already drained from a chaotic morning of getting his kids ready, grabs a quick coffee before heading to work. He glances at his phone while waiting at a red light. News outlets are reporting that childcare policies will be one of the key topics in today's address. He exhales, gripping the steering wheel. This could mean something, or it could mean nothing at all. Meanwhile, in the finance minister's office, final preparations are underway. Stacks of briefing papers line the desk, filled with statistics, budget forecasts, and policy comparisons. Advisors discuss what should and shouldn't be addressed. Some argue that expanding childcare leave could benefit the economy: happier employees, lower turnover, a stronger workforce. Others warn of financial strain, questioning whether businesses can afford the cost of additional paid leave. Outside, the press gathers, cameras ready, microphones positioned. Parents like Sarah and David wait anxiously at home and work, knowing that whatever is said today will directly impact their futures. Employers listen carefully too, wondering if they'll soon have to adjust their policies. Across social media, the conversation is already at a boiling point. Some users share personal stories, missed promotions, unpaid absences, the exhaustion of trying to do it all. Others push back, arguing that businesses aren't responsible for personal choices. Rachel, the mid-level manager, watches the news stream on her office monitor. She's seen how hard it is for her team members with young children to juggle everything. If the government announces a real policy shift, maybe, just maybe, it could change the way companies approach work-life balance. Back in Sarah's apartment, the news countdown begins. She refreshes her email one last time. Still no response from her boss. Her hands are clammy as she picks up her toddler, who reaches for her with sleepy eyes. She holds him close, her mind racing. If the government doesn't act, how long can she keep this up? The finance minister steps up to the podium. The room falls silent. Parents like Sarah and David lean in, their hearts pounding. This is the moment. Will there finally be relief? Or will today be just another day of waiting, hoping, and struggling to keep everything from falling apart? The finance minister clears their throat, scanning the room before speaking. Cameras zoom in. Reporters hold their breath. Parents like Sarah and David grip their phones, waiting for the words that could change everything. The government acknowledges the challenges young parents face. The minister begins. We recognize that balancing work and family responsibilities is not easy, and we have carefully considered options to support working parents. For a second, Sarah feels a flicker of hope. David leans forward in his office chair, fingers tapping against his knee. This sounds promising, but then the minister continues. However, after reviewing economic conditions and consulting with businesses, we have determined that additional paid childcare leave is not financially viable at this time. Silence. The words sink in like heavy stones. Sarah blinks, her mind scrambling to process what she just heard. David exhales sharply, shaking his head. Around the country, parents stare at their screens in disbelief. The minister goes on, explaining that instead of expanding leave, the government will encourage flexible work arrangements and alternative family support initiatives. But no concrete policies are mentioned, no real solutions, just vague suggestions that put the burden back on parents to figure it out. Sarah's grip tightens around her phone. So that's it. After all the discussions, the petitions, the news reports, nothing is changing. She looks at her toddler, who is now playing with a toy on the floor, blissfully unaware of how much his mother's future just shifted in an instant. David slams his laptop shut, frustration bubbling in his chest. He thinks about the parents he spoke to at daycare, the ones who were already stretched thin. What are they supposed to do now? Keep burning through vacation days, risk their jobs, hope their bosses are understanding. But then something unexpected happens. Social media explodes. Within minutes, the news spreads across platforms, and the reaction is louder than anyone anticipated. Parents flood comment sections with their anger, their disappointment, their stories of struggling to stay afloat. Hashtags trend, calling for immediate action. Even some business leaders start speaking out, saying they would support expanded leave if the government offered better incentives. Rachel watches from her office, stunned. She hadn't expected this level of backlash. Could this be the moment where everything shifts? Could this be the pressure needed to force the government to reconsider? Sarah and David don't have answers yet, but they know one thing: the fight isn't over. And this time, it feels like parents everywhere are ready to make themselves heard louder than ever before. The backlash is immediate and unstoppable. News channels scramble to cover the outrage, while journalists reach out to frustrated parents for interviews. Employers who once stayed silent now start to weigh in, some supporting the need for change, others pushing back, worried about costs. But one thing is clear: this issue isn't going away quietly. Sarah watches the chaos unfold from her phone, her emotions a mix of anger, exhaustion, and something she hasn't felt in a long time: determination. She glances at her half-written email to HR, the one she had been too afraid to send. But now, after seeing thousands of parents demanding answers, she makes a decision. She finishes typing, takes a deep breath, and hits send. David, still fuming, starts reading through the comments on a government post about the finance minister's statement. He expected frustration, but what surprises him is the number of people from different industries, healthcare workers, teachers, even small business owners, saying the same thing. This isn't just a parent problem. It's an issue that affects productivity, mental health, and the economy as a whole. Then, buried among the endless comments, one post catches his eye. A well-known journalist has just shared an anonymous tip. Something big is happening behind the scenes. Within hours, reports start emerging that the government had considered expanding childcare leave, but pulled back at the last minute due to pressure from corporate lobbyists. Elite memo surfaces suggesting that some officials actually supported the change but were overruled. Suddenly, the conversation shifts. It's no longer just about policy. It's about transparency, fairness, and whether working families are being ignored in favor of corporate interests. Rachel sees the leak while at work, her heart racing. If the government was close to approving more leave, maybe there's still a chance. She hesitates for a moment, then makes a decision of her own. She schedules a meeting with HR, prepared to push for internal changes within her company. If the government won't act fast enough, maybe businesses will have to lead the way. Meanwhile, Sarah's email gets a response. Her manager wants to meet. Nervous but resolute, she prepares to make her case. Across the city, David sends a message in a parents' group chat. If they won't listen to us individually, maybe I'll listen if we all stand together. The finance minister's office is now under intense scrutiny. With public pressure mounting, officials scramble to address the fallout. The question is no longer if change will happen, but when and whether parents like Sarah and David will have to fight even harder to make sure it does. The pressure is too much to ignore. Days after the leak, the finance minister's office releases a statement. They acknowledge the concerns raised by parents, the business community, and advocacy groups. While they don't commit to immediate changes, they announce a review of childcare leave policies, promising to work with stakeholders to find a solution. It's not the breakthrough many had hoped for, but it's not a dead end either. The conversation is no longer just background noise. It's now a real issue on the government's agenda. Sarah sits at her desk, reading the statement. It's not the perfect outcome, but she feels something different this time. Hope. Not because of what the government has said, but because she now realizes how powerful collective voices can be. Her meeting with HR went better than expected. They agree to offer more flexibility and are considering additional unpaid leave options. It's a small win, but a win nonetheless. David, scrolling through updates, sees how parents are still keeping the pressure on. A petition demanding action has gathered thousands of signatures in just days. Some companies are stepping up, offering their own expanded leave policies to attract and retain employees. The landscape is shifting, slowly but surely. He looks at his kids, playing on the floor, and smiles. He doesn't have all the answers yet, but he feels less alone in the fight. Rachel watches as more companies start internal discussions about work-life balance. Her push for change within her own workplace has gained traction, and for the first time, upper management seems to be listening. She knows there's still a long road ahead, but this moment feels like a turning point. The fight isn't over, but something has changed. Parents like Sarah and David know now that their voices matter. The policies they need might not come overnight, but they've started something that can't be ignored. As they close their laptops and turn their attention back to their children, one thing is clear: this is only the beginning, and they'll be ready for whatever comes next.